Hey everybody, it's Richard Harris and my arch nemesis Scott Leese from Fantasy Football. We had the family draft yesterday, joining us for another episode of Surf and Sales. But more importantly than that, we've got a really amazing guest today. I'm going to let him tell us about his organization, where he's come from. But it's Nimit Bhatt. So Nimit, welcome to the show. We really appreciate it. And of course, before we go further, sorry, Nimit, we got to give a shout out to our two sponsors, Gong. So if you're looking for better coaching capabilities within your sales team, definitely check out Gong, and certainly check out Lead 411 if you're looking for intent data direct dial phone numbers. So we couldn't do this without them. So Nimit, now welcome. Tell everybody where you're from.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Long time listener, first time caller. Thanks for having me. Yep, Nimit Bhatt. I head business development and partnerships at Memory Blue. We are a sales development as a service firm, specifically for B2B technology companies. So you can think of us as renting an entire SDR team from the manager to the tech stack, generate qualified opportunities, and actually have the ability all of our clients have the option to hire our SDRs directly from us. So as they decide they want to build the function in-house, we help them with that entire transition. So I've been with the company for about 8.5 years. I started as an SDR. After about 9 months, was promoted to an SDR manager position out of our HQ just outside of DC. I ran an SDR team there for about 2 years, and then had the opportunity to move to Austin back in 2014 to open up our office there. So packed up the apartment, the car, drove down there with a team of about 6 people, grew that operation to about 30 SDRs, and then also took over our management of our San Jose office as well. So I'd say probably at the height, I had about 60 to 70 SDRs that rolled up to 5 managers that rolled up to me. Did that for several years. And then at the beginning of this year, moved into a new role with the company, running business development and partnerships, helping us expand our partner ecosystem. And pre-COVID, as the guy that's going to be going to all the events and running workshops and sitting on panels and doing all that fun stuff before the pandemic made it all virtual. Yeah, that's a little bit about me.
So you have, Richard, Nimit has been with Memory Blue basically as long as I've lived in Austin. That's like an eternity. That's 25% of my life. And I'm always kind of blown away by people who have that kind of staying power. And you've had a half dozen roles, it looks like.
Yeah.
Lived in 4 or 5 different places on this particular journey.
Mm-hmm.
What is it about the company or the roles that just like keep you coming back and keep you interested in this particular product? Because I think to myself, I would be bored stiff talking about the same product for a decade or more plus, right?
Yeah, for sure. So I mean, a lot of it has to do just with the fact that hiring, developing, onboarding SDRs presents its whole array of challenges and makes the days very, very interesting. Some of the best days and some of the very difficult, challenging days of managing millennial SDRs or SDRs right out of school. Man, that's typically the types of folks that we hire is going to be right out of college. So that itself brings a whole sort of challenges and brings new things from the experience every day. Basically, it comes down to I've never been bored. I've always had a new challenge presented to me. When I got good as an SDR, they said, "Hey, you want to, how do you feel about management?" I said, "Yeah, let's do it." Did that for a couple of years. When I felt like, all right, kind of what's next? They said, "Hey, do you want to move to Austin and open up our first office?" And I said, "Yeah, absolutely." Did that, and then it just kept, every year or two, there's a new mountain for me to climb. And there's something to be said for having that loyalty and the stability and the impact, right? I report directly to the co-founders of the company, so I can present new ideas, I can run with them, I can fail and just move on to something else if it doesn't work out. So that's kind of what's kept me there. There's always a new challenge presented to me for me to tackle.
When you talk about that piece, managing new SDRs just out of college, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's changed from 5 years ago, 6, even 8 years ago, even in the last year or two. And by all means, the last 6 months it is September of 2020. Have you gone through a hiring cohort from the latest recent college grads in May?
We're just starting to. Yeah.
Just starting to. What are you noticing, just for people who are listening, what are you noticing from them in the interview process that might be a little different? Maybe they're asking different kinds of questions than you were used to hearing.
So I think before there was more, I guess, they viewed Memory Blue as kind of like or the SDR role in general as a very short term, stepping stone to the next thing. And I think there's starting to be a little bit of a shift into kind of thinking farther ahead into the future, because there's so much unknown. And I think the pandemic has shown a lot of people that you need to have kind of a plan in case something, like this would happen again.
Does that mean that they're not asking about, am I going to get promoted in 6 months? Or does that mean, they're starting to ask questions around, okay, well, if I do this for a year, what's next? Like, is that what you're
Yeah,
saying?
it's a little bit of that, and it's less of, I used to find that SDRs, when they become SDRs, they immediately start thinking about how no longer to be an SDR and kind of move on to the next thing. But I think now, well, at least what we're seeing is there's a little bit more patience.
Did we lose him?
I was wondering if it was me who froze. So
I think it's him.
I think so too. Well, what are you seeing when you interview people for SDR roles? Let's spill it.
Man, you got to find. We've talked about this many times before, I think, but you got to find creative people. I think in today's like super crowded inbox type world. I've been telling a story lately of this time that I sent tickets to somebody and ended up getting the deal. I was talking to Dale Dupree on his podcast the other day about all his random crazy strategies and things like that. I think creativity is like one of the most essential kind of skill sets now. And, I'll see if Nimit wants to add to that. We lost you there for a second, Nimit, but welcome back.
Yeah, thanks. Sorry about it. I have no idea what just happened.
Sorry, we're professionals here. We know what we're doing.
As long as you guys are.
Yeah, exactly, right. So you were starting to say about SDRs and some more specifics in the interview process that you're noticing.
Yeah. So it's, I think there's an element of a more calculated patience that you're seeing, that understanding that, promotion might not come in 9 months, but if it comes in 12 or 15 months, that's okay. I think because there's more, job security, job safety, that stability, I think is one of those things that people are looking more, kind of see more value in, especially with everything that's been going on. But I wouldn't say it's drastic or to the point where, we're seeing a lot.
Do you get a greater sense of humility?
Yeah.
The people not that they're desperate and they're trying to kiss your ass to get a job, but are they just sort of really realizing what the world is?
I think so. This is kind of an unexpected time for a lot of people. So yeah, there definitely is more humility, I think. But the good thing is they're kind of seeing the value in this type of role, and that in that SDR anywhere. It can open up a lot of doors for you, and kind of it's a great place to get your sales career started.
Do you think the SDR is the hardest role in sales right now?
100%. Yeah. So I'm a little biased, right? But
I tend to agree with you, but I want to hear you explain why.
So I think it was already difficult enough to reach these prospects, and there were already enough objections that you run into as a sales professional, especially at the SDR level. And what the pandemic has done in the past few months is that it's made it even more difficult to reach people. It's made it, when before, when a prospect said we don't have any budget, that a lot of times that's like a brush off objection, right? They just say that just to get you off the phone. But now they're actually pretty serious that they literally don't have budget, or they don't know if they're going to have a job next week. So as the SDR, when you're so used to, I need a more transactional, I got to qualify, I got to book the meeting, I got to move on. Well, now they got to take more of like okay, I got to show some empathy here. I have to have real conversations with these people. And that's just making the job even more difficult. We all know that the SDR job is hard enough as it is, but when you throw an obstacle like a pandemic in the way, it's going to make the job even more difficult. And that's where all the research is done. That's where all of the pre-qualification is done for the AE to then take and close it from there.
What's getting through the noise, right? What is, have you seen certain, Scott was talking a minute ago about creativity and how he sent tickets to somebody. What are you seeing getting through the noise?
So I think the SDRs in general, they used to be very short-term focused. That if I can't get this meeting booked for this prospect on this first call or in the next 3 weeks, it's not going to be worth my time. I'm gonna let the AE worry about the using empathy and really getting into it and building rapport. And what we're starting to see is that SDRs and ours mainly based on talk time is increasing and conversion rates are increasing, is because they actually are having real conversations with prospects. They're asking questions about how they're doing, asking more questions about exactly how the buying cycle works there, and just overall just kind of not being so assertive and so pushy, but demonstrating a level of empathy and a level of storytelling that I think is providing more value in a way than just sending someone an email.
You said something at the very beginning when we got started here about how your team can actually kind of get hired by your clients. And I was struck by that. And I was thinking, well, that's kind of weird. You go in and help these people, and then some of the SDRs do so good or whatever that they go work for these people full time, and then you've got to backfill those people, right?
Exactly.
Talk to me about that model. That's got to be both a blessing and a curse a little bit, no?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and to go back to the question you're asking about what's kind of been keeping me engaged, keeping me here, it's the fact that we're always hiring new people. Is that the SDR team that I would have today, well, in 3 months it's going to look completely different. So with our model, we do see a lot of people leaving, and we hire a lot of SDRs because of that. So last year we hired 195 SDRs company wide. The year before that was 170. Year before that 150. So we really see ourselves as kind of that, we're an outsourced SDR vendor, but we're firm believers in that companies should do it themselves. They should have their own SDR teams, and they should build that function in-house. So we help them with that transition to make that happen.
Now that's even more interesting, because the next question I was going to ask you was, I have gone on record before saying I'm not a fan of outsourced SDR groups and
sure.
That's not a knock on Memory Blue. That's more along the lines of what you just said, which is you're a proponent and a believer in teams doing it in-house, and you're sort of teaching them how to do it in-house. So elaborate on that a little bit. Maybe talk about why you think it is better for orgs to do it in-house, because I'm with you on that part.
Yeah, well, because I think that's the better path for the SDR. When they get to go be an SDR directly for a technology company, that opens more doors for them within that organization to move into, if they want to go and carry a bag, they can do that. If they want to go into marketing or ops or enablement, they have that opportunity to do that. And of course, with us, they have opportunities to get promoted and go into similar type roles. But it's such an important function, especially in B2B tech, that companies need to do it themselves, but they have to do it the right way, because we've seen SDRs get hired by their clients and it's great, but then we see them looking for a job in 6 months because that company didn't have the structure in place, the bandwidth, the tech stack, and they didn't create enough paths for that person, gave them enough attention and coaching and leadership. So we've seen it go the wrong direction so many times that we rather teach these companies how to do it themselves and set them up for that, to be able to do it, and use us as a way to build that whole function in-house.
That's really interesting. I've never, there's two unique facets to what y'all do and how you operate there that I think are pretty uncommon. This is shifting gears a little bit, but I would imagine most people who are working in smaller startups or hiring managers, they might have passed out real quick when you said that you hired between 150 to 200 SDRs a year in the last couple of years. For those of you keeping
where
track,
the fuck do you find them?
We can get to that too.
What's the what kind of professional tips can you and insights can you provide to people who might struggle to hire one or two SDRs, let alone, you know, one or two a day, like you guys are almost averaging?
Yeah. So, I mean, a lot of it is, I mean, you know, you have to make sure that there is a path set up for them, that there is kind of a next step. You know, no matter how long it is, if you make it clear that, we treat our SDR team as a farm system and that, you do well, that opens doors for you to go be an AE in a year or two. Making that really clear, I think is big. And just kind of conveying that you have a way to train them and coach them. And that's a whole other area that
but how do you,
are seeing those. Yeah.
but let me ask you this, and before I go on, particularly for those who are watching the YouTube version, all this twitching you see me do is there's fucking flying around and landing on me. So I promise I'm not tweaking out. But where do you find them?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's not a question of can you have the right career path? I think we all understand that at this point, right? But like, are there just that many available in the Austin area? Are you, because it's a remote world, you're hiring them anywhere and you're doing it remotely? Like, how are you guys leveraging that or figuring that piece out?
Yep. So a big part of it is we've got a great employee referral program internally, right? I mean, and that's not anything crazy and unique that we're doing, but just having that in place. When you hire that many SDRs, those SDRs know other people that they would want to refer, and if they get a couple $100 for referring somebody, that definitely helps. We feel the SDRs that we hire, we put them through a 6 or 7 step interview process that includes a personality assessment, includes a role play, and several interviews. So, and we look for people that, that had college experiences, not college degree is not a requirement, but if they were in college, were they part of a fraternity or sorority? Did they play a sport, any kind of extracurricular activities? And those people tend to know, and after they graduate, they know people that are still there, they're looking for a job when they graduate, and they refer us in. And us, so
what are the things you're
SDRs? Did you hear that?
What?
And interviews for SDRs. Did you hear that?
No, we lost you. We lost you, Scott. Or did you lose me?
We're having technical difficulties today.
Terrible.
I stopped because I heard Nimit say that they have 6 or 7 interviews for the SDRs.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot.
Yep, and we're constantly doing it.
Yeah,
because we always have to backfill.
So talk to me about the personality assessment, right?
Yeah.
What kinds of things are you looking for there?
Yeah, so it's a DISC assessment. I don't know if you guys are familiar with. Yeah, so we use DISC. We benchmark the scores against what they call a successful inside sales professional. So you have to be highly driven. You have to be highly confident. You have to kind of be less cautious, and a little bit more spontaneous. So there's a whole formula and algorithm that it's a pass fail. So if they hit certain metrics and they show a certain score on their D and their I versus their S and their C.
Yeah, but what does that mean? Like, if I'm a listener, right, and I'm saying, "Wow, this is a great idea," without giving away the formula to Coke, what are a couple of things besides, competitiveness needs to be at this level, or, courage needs to be at that level? Like, what are you seeing?
So I guess, so throughout the whole process, the things that we look for, I think more than the assessment, it's the actual role play exercise that we put them through. Like that, they're going to be able to make it. So we give them a scenario at least 24 to 48 hours ahead of the interview where they have to cold call the manager who's conducting the interview. So if it's me, I have to act as a VP of marketing at tech company X, and they have to try to sell me or try to book a follow-up meeting for Memory Blue. So it shows how much they know about the company, and we kind of make it fairly straightforward with them. We give them the questions that they should be asking. We give them the questions that they should be expected to answer. And so we look to see You know, how prepared were they? Did they do the research? Did they rehearse how they sound on the phone? We don't necessarily look for perfection. But after they go through the whole process, we coach them on it. And then we look for, you know, the body language, their engagement. Are they taking notes, or are they getting defensive? And then we have them do it again to see if they actually picked up a couple of things that we coached them on.
Cool. And what are you seeing in compensation change? Are you seeing compensation go down in SDR world now that we're in COVID, or are you seeing it stay the same or increasing?
So yeah, I mean, I think it depends on the market. So, you know, we have an office in San Jose, and the Bay Area is a whole different beast when it comes to SDR compensation. You got SDRs making $80,000 or $90,000 bases out there. So we're actually seeing it go up and there, but everywhere else it's been staying fairly the same. So we're in DC, Boston, Denver, Austin, and San Jose, and we're opening up Seattle later this year. So yeah, I mean, we're kind of seeing it fairly the same everywhere else.
I have a hypothesis, and I'm curious if I'm how right or wrong I am.
Mm-hmm.
I have a belief that, you know, a lot of sales reps have gotten laid off because of COVID,
Yep.
unfortunately. And I think that when people start to hire again, they're going to realize what we've been saying, what those of us who know have been saying for a long time. I should hire a bunch more SDRs before I hire a bunch more AEs, right? Because there's not enough of, you know, let's keep all our AEs happy, right? And let's set more appointments, and we can do that with a lower cost. Are you seeing that? Do you agree, disagree?
So I mean, yeah, I mean, I agree that you have a strong SDR team. I think it would just depend on the organization of what their ideal SDR to AE ratio is going to be, and it just depends on the actual product and the costs and everything. But yeah, I mean, I'm always going to believe that companies, especially when we get through everything that's going on, yeah, they should be building up their SDR teams, because there's going to be so much business out there for them, and the AE is not going to pick up the phone and make calls. So having a team that's there to do that, and then having that SDR ready in, you know, several months to a year to maybe start taking those initial calls and maybe taking the prospect farther down the sales cycle. I think that's overall that's going to help the organization.
Why won't the AEs pick up the phone and make calls? This is like the bane of my existence in the last week. Why has the full cycle AE become a dying breed or a disappearing breed?
So yeah, I think one, it's becoming increasingly more difficult to reach people, and it requires a lot more research and personalization. And if you just look at how many hours are in a day, it's gonna be very tough for an AE to do that consistently and at scale. So they kind of see that, number one. Number two, they're probably just not good at it anymore. I mean, it's just, you know, it's like,
because too much time has passed now since AEs actually made calls, so they're rusty at it.
It's cold calling is not like riding a bike, right? I mean, I equate cold calling to, you know, if you work out consistently and you build up your strength to lift a certain amount, and then you stop working out for several months, when you start doing it again, you're not going to be as good as you were before. You got to build up that strength again. And I see cold calling in the same way. Is if you don't do it for even a couple of weeks, you're going to start feeling a little rusty. And I think that just plays into it. And I've seen the AEs a little sense of entitlement with that role too, of like, no, I'm closing big deals now.
I will go. Let me speak for you, since I don't have to report to any of them. I think there's a lot of entitlement. They don't have to report to me. Right? I don't think it's a little bit of entitlement. They're like, I've been there, I've done that, I'm more valuable. There's still this sort of, you know, redheaded stepchild bullshit that exists. And it's so funny because it used to be outside sales versus inside sales. Now outside sales is the redheaded stepchild, and teams are freaking out because they don't know how to run inside sales. And now it's all just been pushed. Like, there's this constant push, in my opinion, whether it's from the sales leadership team of the AEs or the AEs themselves, to not want to take on any level of real accountability, right? The really good ones do. The great companies do that, right? There are tons of them out there, but when I see and hear this, it's always an accountability issue. So so I know you're being sensitive not to upset your clients, so I'll just say all this stuff.
No, I mean, I think it comes with the actual target market. The more finite the target market is, the more hesitant that an AE is going to be to have an SDR pick up the phone and make calls, because you might only have that one shot. And I think we definitely see it because we're an outsourced vendor. So, companies are already hesitant to have somebody that doesn't work for them picking up the phone and saying, "Hi, I'm calling from that company." And I think even internally, you see that between the AE and SDR teams.
What's some of the most creative strategies that you're seeing work right now? I think everybody's like really stretching themselves trying to get super creative right now. You got any good creative outreach stories?
So, and this isn't recent, but I mean, the handwritten note is actually, I'm starting to see a little bit of a comeback with that. I mean, actually mailing somebody a handwritten note with some type of gift or something like that. We've done campaigns where we've done that with some success. Video is a big thing right now. I've yet to see it work, super well at scale, but I mean, it seems to be the direction that a lot of companies are headed towards, or SDRs are trying that as a way, and LinkedIn's becoming more and more prominent. I mean, I'm trying to think of a story right now that I think would be at least good to share. If something pops up, I'll bring it up.
You brought up the mail piece, right? And we've talked about this. Are you guys using one of the services out there? There's a couple of them out there.
No, so we don't do it fairly often. It's typically just like a one-off. So if one of our clients is using but
how do you get, and which is interesting because we've been talking about this in another group I'm a part of, and I think there's a little bit of an ick factor because in some cases you're having to ask for someone's home address, right? How are you guys getting to that piece? Or is it, no, Richard, we're only working with people in, states where we know they're actually still going to the office and we're sending it to the office, or we're sending it to the office knowing that it'll eventually get to them?
Yeah, so right now it's just sending it to the office, just because it's difficult enough to get their home address. Sometimes the companies will forward it to their home address, but yeah, I mean, I think if for sure too. I mean, yeah, there are more states where people are starting to go back to the office, or at least maybe once a week. So yeah, I wouldn't say we're doing it a whole lot right now, but at least pre-COVID, it was working fairly well.
What's a good video strategy you've seen aside from, "Hi, Richard, I saw your LinkedIn profile," and you hold up a sign with my name so you know I'm real, right? Which work?
That's not creative anymore, Richard.
Maybe it is. I don't know. I don't use video enough to know that. Maybe it is.
No, I'm making the joke because that was like the first way of video creation.
But we also pay attention. We've been paying attention to it for years, whereas I think it's still very new for a lot of people.
Yeah, it's new for us too. I mean, outside of that, I haven't seen anything more creative than "Hi, Richard" with the holding up the sign. I've seen some people where they'll put, since I was in Austin, they would wear a UT shirt, even though I didn't go to UT, and to try to personalize it, but I was like, that's not going to work.
You're on mute, Richard.
Well, first I muted him, and then I muted me,
Yeah.
and then I unmuted him.
Like, did I say something to offend you?
No. This might be the most brutal episode. So are you seeing things that do work though? Are you seeing that, they are putting on a sports jersey or a shirt or something in video that's getting through the noise? Or do you think it's still just so novel an idea that people like it?
I think we're still in the early stages of it. I'm always welcome to hearing what would work with it. I'm a little more old school. I'm still pick up the phone and make a call. I mean, I still think that's the best prospecting tool to have, and that's what we preach here. We always have the phone first mentality.
How many times a week are you getting called and prospected on the phone?
Not a lot, which is why if somebody were to call me, there's a better chance to reach me.
Like more, can you fit it on one hand, two hands, or times?
I'd say 10 at the most. a week.
What about you, Richard? Zero.
I get zero, and I actually give out my phone number
Yeah.
all the time. Like if I'm on a webinar or something, I'll throw out my cell phone number, and when I do that, I might get one text or phone call, but rarely does it ever happen. I'm also not in a lot of people's
Yeah.
ICP, so they may kind of be like, "Yeah, Richard, we're not calling
I
you."
don't think people want to talk on the phone anymore. You know, I really don't. People,
Yeah.
I'd rather text you back and forth than talk to you on the phone, Richard.
That's why I leave you really long voicemails.
just to irritate me, and it works. I changed my voicemail. I literally changed my voicemail message to say, "Please don't leave me a voicemail. I won't check it anymore. Just text me." I think it's the people are just like maybe more protective of their time a little bit, and just prefer this type of communication. Maybe you just be more direct over text, for example.
Yeah, right? I agree. I'd much rather text. I think it's when it comes to the prospecting part that can become difficult. I mean, we're on any given day, one of our SDRs will make somewhere between 70 to 100 cold calls. And so over the course of a month, we see a lot of that data, and of all the thousands of meetings that we book as a company for our clients, pre-COVID, it was about 70% of the meetings we book are gonna be over the phone, and the rest are gonna be over email and over social. And basically March into April, it only went down to about 63%, and it stayed like that for the rest of the summer.
Wow.
We saw conversion rates going up, and then we saw talk time going up as well. I mean, people are just having longer conversations. I think we saw connection rate go up. People were forwarding their desk phones to home, and then especially when you have local presence technology, that just increases the chances already that they're going to pick up, especially when they're working from home. They're just seeing a local area code and they'll answer it. And there's less, there are fewer obstacles because of, there's no gatekeeper in the office. So, it's been working for us. And that's not to say that email and social, all that stuff definitely works as well. But we're thinking about, how do we do it at scale? If we have the machine running in the background that's sending the emails and, if picking up the phone, and it can do wonders for you still, I think.
How do you feel about the local presence stuff? I remember when it first came out and everybody was like, this is amazing. Mm-hmm. But I've seen a decent amount of like backlash or hate on it recently that's disingenuous and whatnot. I wonder if this question is for both of you, I guess. Like, are you guys a fan of it or still a fan of it, or has your opinion changed at all?
I think people understand the technology more. So, if they do see a local area code, they're less likely to answer it. But I don't know. We've always told our SDRs to let us know if they've run into any of those situations. And this is anytime recent. This is probably maybe a year or two after we actually start using that technology. And we never really saw a whole lot of people getting upset at us for it. A lot of people don't even they don't even think about it. They just answer the phone. But it's done wonders for us. I think for a lot of SDRs. So I think they're just seeing their connection rates rise because of that.
I think sales leaders are annoyed by it because they keep getting pitched, right? They're getting people coming in and they're being, they're picking up the phone thinking it's urgent. But the answer to that question isn't about how anybody feels about it. It's a question of what does the data show you, right? It's a different mindset. If the data says it's working, then it works. If the data says it's not working, then it's not working. And so to me, it's a data-driven decision as opposed to anything else. And you have to be willing to Nimit's point, you've got to be willing to handle any backlash that may come your way.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what is your ideal tech stack, right? Like you're hiring an SDR, right? Like what is your tech stack if you're willing to share?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you're welcome to name names, like we don't, we'll
Sure.
send them a bill.
They actually paid me to bring them up on this program.
I'm sure they did.
Yeah. So for our dialing technology, we use FrontSpin. We use and so what's unique about us is because we will have multiple prospects that we're targeting for multiple campaigns within one CRM. So we use Salesforce. So it's been difficult for us to use certain technologies because of that, because the cadence can't tell the difference between Richard Harris that we're calling for this client on, and then the same Richard Harris that we're calling a different client for. So we use FrontSpin for our dialing technology. We use a mixture of ZoomInfo, DiscoverWord, or it's all the same now. We try using Rocket Reach for mobile, and then we're trialing Seamless right now as well, and then LinkedIn Sales Navigator. And then I think the single most important technology that we've brought on recently has been call coaching. So we use Exec Vision here internally, but I've always encouraged SDR teams, whether you have an SDR team of 2 or SDR team of 10, that you have to purchase a call coaching solution. And I mean, that alone is going to absolutely revolutionize the way that you are onboarding your SDRs and coaching your SDRs.
So here's one thing, because I had this conversation today, was, okay, so I go get this call coaching tool, right? And they're all good. But, we all know Chorus and Gong and Exec Vision, right?
Yep.
We know SalesLoft has one too. I'm seeing that people using that as a crutch for managers still not managing and coaching, right? So as someone who uses it and someone who practices coaching, how do you get the best results out of a call coaching tool?
So I think first and foremost, you have to create a culture of call coaching. You have to start incorporating that into the requirements of the SDR leader and the requirements of the actual SDR. And you have to get multiple levels of management involved in coaching these calls. If I'm an SDR and I see that somebody 2 or 3 levels above me, like a VP of sales or even a CRO, took 10 minutes out of their day to coach one of my calls, and as you both have seen, the call coaching technology that exists today makes it so easy just to set aside 10 or 15 minutes and coach a call, and leave very detailed comments and very actionable things for that SDR to do. As an SDR, I'm going to feel like I'm valued, I'm important, and I'm going to kind of make sure to ask for more feedback. So we require our SDRs to coach at least 2 calls a week, and our managers have to coach a certain number per week as well. We incorporate it into our onboarding like crazy. I mean, our entire 6-week Memory Blue Academy, like our onboarding program for SDRs, it heavily relies on our call coaching solution, and our SDRs actually going out in the wild, bringing calls that are based on the lessons that we've taught them. So if it's intro and opening statement, they have to go out and get a recording and bring that to the next session of, all right, intro, this is your intro and OS, and we break it down. And then next week it's gonna be discovery. Next week, the week after that, objection handling, and then closing for next steps. So it's just about, if you create that culture and you actually show people how to use it, that's basically what we've done, and just hammered it in to how an SDR needs to kind of what's part of their job responsibilities.
How fast? I've got like time for 1 or 2 more questions, but how much can an SDR or any human absorb a piece of tech, right? So if you're onboarding somebody, right, and you've got Salesforce and you've got Exec Vision and you've got all these ZoomInfo, like how long does it take for them to get it and use it versus master it?
Yeah, I think it probably, it'll take a few weeks to get used to all of it for sure. Luckily, I mean, outside of Salesforce, the other ones are pretty straightforward and pretty simple to use. I mean, a call coaching software is gonna be a little bit more difficult, but when it comes to a list building solution, that's gonna be fairly easy to use. I think it's mainly the CRM that takes the longest time easily. I mean, if you're just not used to, you've never used it before, or even seen it, it can be pretty difficult to use. And sometimes it's using Outlook and Excel is the hard part, kind of depending on the type of person. So it's definitely going to take some time to soak it all in, and the mastering is the important part. And again, it's about making sure that you're drilling it in to the process, and that they understand it. And but yeah, I mean, it's going to take some time.
So what do you? Is there a particular order you have them go in when they learn stuff?
So we start with just the foundations of a cold call, right? Just the anatomy of a cold call. So we take them through introduction. How do you open a call? What's the first thing you say? What's your opening statement? And then how to conduct proper discovery, right? So what kinds of questions should you be asking? How should you be asking them? And we make it foundational that they can take it and apply it to the particular client that they're assigned to. Right? So we make it basic enough. It's a framework that they follow. And then we talk them through objection handling, right? How to handle the most common sales objections. And then of course there's gonna be product specific objections that they're gonna work with the client on. But how do you get over it's a bad time, or no budget, or it's not a priority, I'm not the right person. And then we take them through actually how to close for next steps. What should you say? It's not as simple as, all right, you want to take a meeting, but it's about asking if they have their calendar in front of them. It's asking them about, to make it the best use of their time. What should the conversation center around? And it's about the follow-up. And then we go into how to talk to gatekeepers, and then how to properly list build, which isn't just, export a huge list of names, but it's how do I research each prospect? What kinds of things do I look for? And then we spend time on emails as well, how to craft certain types of emails. And so that's literally the order that we go in, that I just went through.
That's great. So you're starting with the old school, right? So you're not diving in on the other. That's great. Well, we got into the time where we do need to actually wrap it up. So, what can we do for you? How can we be of support to you?
Yeah, I mean, if you know SDRs who are looking for a role, we talked about, we're always hiring.
Will you hire remote now? Will you hire them anywhere?
So right now we are sticking it to the DC area, Boston, Denver, San Jose, and Austin. Soon Seattle, hopefully in the next few months. So that's core sticking to be local to one of those cities for now.
Cool.
But yeah, I mean, I appreciate you guys having me here. This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. And we come across SDRs and folks like that looking for roles all the time. So we'll be sure to send them your way and turn them on to Memory Blue.
Yeah,
absolutely. Appreciate that.
Thanks so much. And again, as always, thanks to our sponsors for Lead 411 and Gong for supporting us and doing all what they can to help the sales community as well. We'll talk to you again soon.